The number one early sign of dementia. You've probably never heard about this before. In fact, I just recently found out about it. And this involves everyone, especially if you want to prevent the different types of dementia like Alzheimer's and others. I think most people know that the first symptom of a heart attack over 50% of the time is death because there is no symptom. And the same thing with the liver. There really are no symptoms until the later stages, when sometimes it's too late. Well, guess what? The brain is the same thing. It takes decades to develop dementia. In the meantime, there's virtually no symptoms except one, which I'm going to discuss. This is because the different organs, especially the brain, just keep compensating over a period of time until they can't compensate anymore. So the earliest sign of dementia involves the retina. It's nerve tissue that is literally sticking out of your skull in your eye socket. The retina has certain cells that pick up information from the environment and allow you to see. They found a very large correlation between the retina and problems in the brain, specifically with the outer layer of the retina. Then you have all sorts of issues with the eye itself. Problems with night vision, problems with central vision, floaters, light sensitivity issues. A lot of times people will just, get a new set of glasses, and they may even develop something called amyloid beta plaque on the retina itself. At the end of the video and also in the description, I'll tell you what test would pick this information up. You might also notice problems with detecting different shades of gray, or even differentiating different colors as well. They also evaluated cadavers' brains and the retina of people with cognitive deficits, like a mild version of dementia. You start having more inflammation in the nervous system, and then things start to go downhill after that. Another really interesting thing about the brains of Alzheimer's patients is that they found high levels of a certain microbe that happens to be living in your teeth. It's actually a pathogen, and they're finding that in the plaque of the brain. If someone has a dental infection or some type of periodontal disease, you could be leaking out bacteria that goes into the bloodstream and ends up in the brain. We also found dental bacteria in the plaque of our heart as well. I have a very important new solution for all of this, but I just want to take a moment to explain why people actually die from dementia. It's usually from some type of infection, a UTI, or maybe a lung infection. In the case of my mother-in-law who had Alzheimer's, it was a surgery. It created so much stress in the body, and after that things just started going down and down a lot faster. On the other hand, sometimes you have a slow, progressive degeneration of the brain, to the point where a person is in hospice and they're bedridden. Then they just stop eating and stop drinking, and that's what kills them. Let's talk about what we can do about this, and one of the most important things that you should focus on is cleaning your brain. If you have a lot of inflammation and plaque in the brain, it's dirty. You can really look at this as like a dishwasher, and they call it the glymphatic system that cleans the brain mainly at night. That's one of the big purposes of sleeping, to be able to detoxify and clean the brain so you wake up and things are cleaned out. And what I mean by clean the brain is pulling out some of these malformed proteins and the plaque and rejuvenating the brain. Anything that inhibits sleeping increases your risk for Alzheimer's. In fact, anything that inhibits your sleeping less than 6 hours increases your risk for heart attacks, strokes, cancer, blood sugar issues, and type 2 diabetes. So, if you have sleep apnea, that is a problem. And if you have sleep apnea, I'm going to put a link down below of what to do about it. You need to get 8 or 9 hours of sleep, and this is based on a book, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. Fascinating book. Even one night of less than 7 hours of sleep, you're going to have 50% more buildup of amyloid beta plaque. How do we get more sleep? Another factor in getting quality sleep is the avoidance of alcohol. 1 cup of alcohol prevents a significant part of your REM sleep. You might feel like you're sleeping because it's a sedative, but you're not getting the quality of sleep. If you're drinking several times a week, this could be a huge problem with the quality of sleep, and also in the prevention of Alzheimer's. It can shut down growth hormone by 50%. It's an anti-aging hormone. It helps you lose weight. Alcohol is really bad for your brain, and we want to flood the brain with a lot of oxygen. How do we get oxygen in the brain? Exercise. Regular, consistent exercise, hands down, is one of the most important things to do to prevent Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. People who are sedentary do not get the oxygen in the brain. Getting oxygen to the brain lessens something called hypoxia. That's a word that describes lack of oxygen, and with hypoxia, you get inflammation. When you exercise, you make the brain healthier, you grow brain cells, and you stimulate something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's like Miracle-Gro for your brain. There's also a tiny little mechanism deep in the brain that regulates the rhythm of your sleep. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Not that you need to know that name, but that's what it is. And that thing is so important to regulate the sleep cycles. A couple of ways to get that working is during the daylight, get a lot of sun, and then start to go to bed when it gets dark. Vitamin D in higher amounts can reset that mechanism. I would recommend taking about 20,000 international units of vitamin D. Then there's also the fuel that you feed the brain. If you're living on carbohydrates and sugar, you're going to create a starvation on the nerve cells. You really want to put your brain in a state of ketosis. The brain cells love ketones. How do you get into ketosis? You lower your carbohydrate intake. If you have signs of dementia, I would highly recommend that you take ketones as a supplement, and you also take on a regular basis MCT oil, because MCT oil can turn into ketones and feed the brain directly. We want to flood that brain with a lot of ketones. As far as nutrition goes, I think out of all the nutrients, niacin is going to be very important for the brain. I would start up maybe with 50 milligrams for a period of time, then go to 100 milligrams per day, and then eventually up to 500 milligrams per day. You gotta do it slowly because some people can't tolerate the flushing response. I kind of like the flushing response. It's not dangerous. It just will create a vasodilation effect. Since we're on the topic of sleep, if you want to take your sleep to the next level, you should watch this video right here. Check it out.